Hi, William. Can you hear me?
Good
Is
afternoon.
your audio connected?
I hear you. Yeah.
Okay, great, great.
Hi. Good to see you.
Okay, so we want to get straight to the one topic today.
Yeah, but I would like to introduce you because not everybody knows you, of
Please,
course. Yeah.
please go
So
ahead.
if I understand correctly, you are a teacher. You teach Jewish culture, history, I suppose.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I run a school. I'm, I guess, what you would call the dean of a school.
okay.
I opened it over here in Israel about 18 years ago. For
Okay.
a gap year. Are you familiar with that concept? Like
Yes.
after high school, the girls come for a year, they get college credits, and then go on to university
Okay. Perfect. And you're based in Israel, right?
in Jerusalem. Yes.
In
Yeah.
Jerusalem. Okay. And today we want to dive into the topic of apartheid.
Yes.
And I understand that you strongly disagree that there's such a thing as apartheid in Israel. That's correct, right?
Yes. Very, very
Yeah.
strongly. Yes.
And what exact where does this term come from first? This apartheid. It comes from South Africa, right?
Correct. I think it's an Afrikaans term that was the system in South Africa. It happens to be right. My parents are both from South Africa and
Mm-hmm.
left in large
Mm-hmm.
part because of their very, very strong opposition to the whole concept.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the legal definition, I mean, if you want to say, I don't, the legal definition, I believe, is where there's a structure and laws that are passed and of discrimination, where there's an
Mm-hmm.
official level of discriminatory law, not just that there's like racism in a culture, racism exists in every culture, but where it is state mandated racism, where like in South Africa, and also like in Nazi Germany, right, where certain people can't use the same facilities as other people. People can't have the same jobs as other people, different services that are only available, for certain
Mm-hmm.
types of people and not for others.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a definition that you want to work with? Should we look up an official definition and read it and see?
No, I think that sums it up. It reminds me of segregation in southern states,
Correct, Jim Crow
and
laws and segregation.
my native language is Dutch, as you know, and I would translate apartheid, which is basically kind South Afrikaans word or Dutch words, kind of. I would translate it as separateness, which sounds mellow, but as you've just described, it's anything but
Yes.
mellow. So, does this exist in Israel?
No, it does not exist on any level in Israel. Meaning
Mm-hmm.
there is not a single. Well, two things. First of all, Muslims, Arab Muslims, of which is about 20% of the Israeli population, not just Muslim, but Arabs, Christian, Muslim, Druze, but make up about just over 20% of the population in Israel, and they are represented in every aspect, every place of Israeli society. There's not separate schools for them. There's not separate facilities for them. There's nothing. There's nothing separate. We sit on the same buses next to each other. We eat in the same restaurants next to each other. They work in every aspect of life. Like I mentioned to a number of times, I have a rheumatological issue, and my rheumatologist happens to be a Palestinian doctor. The pharmacist at the pharmacy over here, all the people that happen to work in this one particular pharmacy, Super Farm. I think that's like an international thing. I don't know if you have that in Slovakia, but Super Farm is like a chain that's all around, and
I don't
most
know.
of the okay, yeah, it's just most of the pharmacists, for some reason, it happens to be a very big job amongst the Palestinians. I don't know why that is the case, but it happens to be just in that particular sector. There's more Arabs than there are Jews.
Mm-hmm.
At least where I live in Jerusalem. I don't know if it's like that everywhere in Israel. There's in the Israeli Knesset, which has 120 members. So there's a dozen or so that are Palestinians, meaning they're in the government. I don't believe there are any blacks in the government in South Africa. And certainly not in Nazi Germany. The Jews were purged from any of those positions. They are go to the same schools. That happens to be the religious schools are separate. They have separate Jewish and Muslim religious schools, but the regular public schools are integrated fully. There's no separate classes. The teachers are Arabs. My daughter does supplemental math work online and takes like science and math classes for free. The government just offers free classes. It started during COVID, but it's been continuing, and most of the teachers, again, just happen to be that most of the teachers that my daughter interacts with are Palestinians. They have the same exact voting rights that we have, the same exact passport that we have. There's no markings in their, identification cards or something that singles them out as anything in terms of second class. I could show you, we could show on the screen, like I showed you a brief interaction where someone said, oh, give me a break. We've been, there's dozens of laws that are discriminatory laws. However, if you actually read through it, not a single one is discriminatory. Every single law that is in that list are laws that apply to Jews and non-Jews. I'll tell you where it started. Recently, there was a law that was passed that and Mehdi Hassan, let me share this post with you while we're talking about it, because that was really what got this whole thing started. So just give me 1 second here. We could pause the recording if you'd like to, but let's give me one.
Let's continue.
Give me 1 second just to find this this post here. Okay, what's this? Yosef Ibrahim. Let me find where he says this.
I just wanted to ask, because you mentioned that there are no differences, but one clear difference is that there's only a military draft for the Jewish population, right? The Arabs are exempted. The Arabs in Israel, Israeli Arabs.
I think yes, I believe so. I'm not. I don't. Well, first of all, the draft is not universal either. My children are not going to be in the army. Many religious people don't go to the army. It's not.
So who does it apply for then?
I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know exactly what the laws are in terms of who is officially drafted and who is not. Like I said, I know that Arabs are in the army, that's for sure.
But then they volunteer.
But I think it's by volunteer only. I'm trying to find this guy. I don't know which one is him. Actually, there's many people with the same name. So
maybe just describe what he said.
So, but it's important because he includes a link. He includes a link in it. So, give me 1 second. Give me one moment, and I'll find it here. For some reason, it's not letting me go to the link that I sent you. It's just I'm clicking on it. So, give me 1 second, and I will find it. I'll search for it in my in my profile.
I would also later like to talk about how this term of apartheid might more be used in the context of Palestinians outside of Israel, that this term is used to describe the situations between Israelis and non-Israeli Arabs.
Okay, so 1 second. Yes, that's important to understand. 1 second. I don't know why it's not letting me search like only within on my phone. On my phone, it lets me search for this, but on the computer, I can't find where it lets me like search only within my profile. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
Okay, I'm not finding it now, but it's important because it's
so
maybe you could do it. Could you open up the link that I sent you? It's
I will go
Yosef,
to your profile and
Yosef Ibrahim. Here it's here. Maybe I'll find him like this. 1 second.
Have it?
No, not yet. But I'm going to copy his username, and maybe I'll find him like this. It's not even pasting in here for some reason. Very strange. I don't. It's just not following the link. But this is
try to tell me what was there.
Okay, so I mean, he includes this whole a long list of laws that they it's like one website that constantly does these types of things, and but they claim that they're apartheid laws, meaning that they're somehow or another, that they're, I don't know, it's not finding it, that they are these are a whole list of laws that are
Discriminatory.
discriminatory, exactly, that apply only to only to the Arabs, and that don't apply to the Jews, etc. And it's just not true. In other words, what they're pointing to are laws that criminalize. Okay, where it started is as follows: a new law came out that made like similar to what we have in America. We have hate crime laws, right? That if you commit a hate crime, which is the same thing as a regular crime, however, it's done specifically with a racist intent, so it intensifies the punishment. Now, it happens to be, I don't agree with that idea, because I feel like it's punishing thought. You know what I mean? And it's very hard.
Yeah, free speech.
Yeah,
I would
okay,
actually, I would like to know what people are thinking.
right.
Then I know.
So, but okay, without getting into that in America, but we have this concept of hate crime laws, where if a person does the exact same crime, but it's done with a racist intent, so then the punishment is greater. It intensifies the punishment. Okay, so a law was passed here in Israel, specifically about sexual assault, about a rape and sexual assault, that if it's politically motivated, right, meaning if it's a sexual assault, but it has a political racist motivation to it, so then it's also the same thing. It's the punishment is intensified. And somehow, I don't even understand why. I maybe the statistics are such that Arabs commit more sexual assaults like this. I don't even know why. But Mehdi Hassan and then Brianna Joy, Greyjoy, I follow her also. So they posted this as if this is another list of the apartheid laws. I remember even his tweet. He's like, I think this reminds me of something starts with an A. What is it when laws are different for different groups of people? But that's like literally the whole list of laws. For example, there's a law outlawing the throwing of rocks at cars, and gives like specific punishments for rocks being thrown at cars. Now, are there more Arabs that throw rocks at cars than Jews? Yes, that's true, but that doesn't make it into a discriminatory law. There's no law. You know what I'm saying? The laws.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. I sent you the link. We can't go through it here because I just can't get to it. But you have it on your phone. You could look through yourself.
Oh,
That's what I countered to this person. I said to the guy, "Did you actually look through this list?" And he just came back with some ad hominem of whatever.
But by the way, maybe interesting to you, Slovakia is often accused of segregation, of segregating Roma kids in schools, that they organize separate classes for them. And in some cases, it's true. It's happening, and they're trying to do something about it. Many people are involved. They're trying to stop it. They're trying to improve the situation, but it's ongoing. There are schools where I saw a video where Roma kids are forced, or they didn't seem forced. They seem to agree to it, but still, they ate in a separate room, and the dean or the principal defended this by saying, yeah, they don't even know how to hold a spoon, so we have to keep them separate, and it's better for everybody. So clear case of segregation. So I'm a little bit familiar with this.
Okay, yeah, I'm saying, but so what I'm saying is that there is,
that it doesn't happen in Israel. That's
there
what you're
is
saying.
I'm not saying there's no racism. I'm not saying that.
There's racism everywhere.
Like I told you, there's racism against Sephardic Jews and Sephardic Jews to Ashkenaz Jews. There's every society has that, and there's no question that there are people who have
here as well
sentiments that are not anti-Arab sentiments. No question about it. However, there's nothing that is in law like that. The Arabs have full access to the full legal system, the full health system, the full educational system. Like I said, they have exactly the same rights that I do. I'll tell you something. So one time,
so
yeah, go.
So that's what's happening on paper, and that is, if you study the legal text, maybe I believe you can't find it there, I suppose. But could it be that there is some kind of hidden structural mechanism that somehow does open more doors for the majority, the Jewish population, and not for the Arabs? even if in the legal text you can't find it.
That's true in any. That's true with me. I'm a Haredi Jew over here in Israel, right? There are many people who much prefer the Arabs to me over here, for sure. You know what I mean? For sure. The very secular Israelis, are certainly the peace types, they're very, I could tell whatever, a terrible story that just happened down in the south. A lot of religious people, Zaka is the organization that prepares people for burial. So they many, and they're overwhelmingly ultra-Orthodox Jews that do this. There are many different people that do, but there happens to be that many ultra, and a lot of people were down in the south, collecting bodies and body parts and dealing with all of that. And one of the people told us just like unbelievable racism that he experienced from some of the people that were down there, some of the survivors. Like they couldn't believe that he didn't. They call us like parasites because their sons go to the army and our sons study in yeshiva, and they get money from the government for their studies. And like he was so blinded, this person, he had such a biased picture, like he couldn't believe that this person wasn't only not in yeshiva, but he actually owns a computer business. That's how we know him. He does the security cameras and the networking in our seminary. So that's why I was talking to him. And this person literally couldn't accept that this guy had his own company with 40 employees and contributes to the society. So there's no question that the division exists in every society, and it exists in Israel also. But like I'm saying, there's no question that there's many people that are more sympathetic to the Arabs than they are to the ultra-Orthodox. That's also for sure. And I'm sure there are people that are less sympathetic to the Arabs. It happens to be, in general, Israel is a very sort of nepotistic country, you know what I mean? Like not only familial, but it has a lot has to do with, there's a word, protectia, which means sort of like, I don't know if that's an Israeli word or if it's a universal word. Protectia means like, who you know makes a very big difference in getting stuff done.
You actually have it in Slovak, not in my native language, but in Slovak you have something like that.
Right, so that exists in this country a lot, and and me being like an immigrant, I don't have generational backing over here, so I a lot of times can't get stuff done, and I see other Israeli people who get stuff done very easily and things like that.
Give me one example. What kind you get done?
Like getting a building permit for something, right? Being able to get a building permit. So I know of a situation right now in my neighborhood that there's a certain synagogue that wants to try to get a permit, and they were having a very hard time, and then a person who knows somebody got involved. And
same thing in Slovakia, by the way.
Yeah, so
can I give one example?
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe for our viewers, I needed an MRI scan. It's hard to get an MRI scan. I had an appointment for the 7th of December, and I got it somewhere in September. It's a long wait. I mentioned this to one of my students, and my student says, "Oh, what are you doing? My mother-in-law is the boss of the whole thing. I will call her," and I got one early.
Right.
To me, this is, what is this?
Right.
But I can mention some cases like that in Belgium, but here it's systematic.
Yeah, I think there's certain countries where that's just more culturally done, and it's yeah. So however, but I want to make this clear: there are many Arabs that are very wealthy businessmen and things like that, and they're on the inside also. You know what I mean? It's not that like, no, it's only the Jewish people that have access to that. There's plenty of Palestinian people that are, first of all, they're in the government also. Like I said, there are members of the Knesset that are, and always has been. It's never not been that way. There's always been Palestinian members of the Knesset. They're on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has a court. It's 15 judges, and now there's one. At other times there were two, depending. It moved, but they participate in every aspect of life, and those who have protectia, they also can help their people do it the same way. So but again, this is so far away from apartheid already, right? Apartheid is where there's a legal system of separation, a legal system of differentiation. Now, the only place where this exists and it's accurate is the right of return. Meaning that, and this is like we discussed in our previous discussions, that Israel was created in order to be a place for Jewish people to be able to live, because the world for those few years in 1945 till 48 recognized how historically the Jewish people have been kicked out of so many different countries and persecuted so many times and never had anywhere to go. So this country was established in order to create a place for Jewish people to go. So people see that as racist, right? That's apartheid. Well, what do you mean? How come you can move there and I can't move there if I'm a Arab? Even if my great grandparents lived there, but they left, were kicked out, or left voluntarily. Again, big question, right? But to me, that that first of all, let's understand that there are 10 Muslim countries around us that Jews are not even allowed to enter, let alone to go there and live there. There are many countries that have these types of laws, right? That this country accepts certain types of people to come and live, and that's the setup. That's the only place where there's a law that differentiates between a Jew and a non-Jew. That's the only place. And even that is not anti-Arab, it's anti-Slovakian or Belgian also, right? A person doesn't automatically get a right to come and move to Israel if they don't have a Jewish grandparent, if they came from Slovakia or Belgium or from one of the Arab countries. So that's the only law, the right of return, which is that they don't even have to be Jewish. According to Jewish law, a person is only Jewish if their mother was Jewish or their mother's mother, right? But according to their law, they defined it the way that Hitler defined it. And if Hitler defined it as only one Jewish grandparent, so then that's the law of return also. So that's the only law that exists, that there's an actual differentiation that applies differently from a Jew to a non-Jew. And we can argue whether that's fair or not fair. To me, that's the whole basis for the establishment of the state of Israel, was to be a place for Jews to be able to live. It doesn't mean that people can't emigrate here. You could. People do move here from other countries. However, they have to be accepted and go through a process, etc. Whereas a Jew is automatically, unless they are a criminal or something, right? There are reasons that Jews get rejected as well. What
could be a reason?
People who are criminals, people like very often criminals will, like, as soon as they're found out, before they'll try to run away if they're Jewish, try to come to Israel.
I've read about that.
Yeah, I think the most famous one was what's his name, the famous gangster, I forgot his name, big one of the big mobsters from
Capote. Al Capone.
Well, like Al Capone, but a little bit later in the man, his name just slipped my mind right now. So he came to Israel and he wanted to live here, and Golda Meir personally got involved and sent him back to America to face trial and stuff like that. So there are people who have, if they have a criminal record or something, then they could be denied. A lot of times people will come here right away to try to avoid, but they extradite people. I know people personally who, where situations personally where people tried to move here and they were sent back and had to face trial and go to jail, etc. But a person with a clean legal record and without any, so then they're basically automatically, it's not automatic, they also have to go through a process. When we moved here, it's a whole process, but they won't deny citizenship to any Jewish person unless there's like a reason to do so. So that would be the only law that discriminates between Jews and non-Jews. But again, it's not a law that's discriminating against non-Jews. It's that Israel was set up to be the country for the Jews. You heard what I'm saying? In other words, non-Jews can come and move here also. They just don't automatically get accepted. It's not.
But I think a lot of people find that to be a very, very strange concept, that a country is mostly open to the members of one faith, if it's a faith, right? Judaism, I don't know, that's also debatable if it's an ethnicity or a faith. But let's say, okay, Jews, they can move there, or they have it easier to be accepted there, or to move there. I think for many people this is very strange. Huh?
I think only for people who don't know anything about world history. You know what I mean?
But yeah, maybe I don't get it, and I get why. Of course, I get that many Jews, most Jews, wanted a safe place after horrible things that happened to them in Europe during the Second World War. But like, is there still a need for it now?
Yes, yes, there is.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, there's absolutely. If you don't see that the world's anti-Semitism that's
Well,
rising around.
I'm not Jewish, so I'm trying to
Right,
understand
no,
it. I'm trying
I
to understand it.
understand, but I'm just telling you that in the past, number of years, I don't know if you saw what happened in France a number of years ago. There was like a
Yeah.
huge increase in anti-Semitism, and tens of thousands of French people moved here. I'm saying people that I know came into this neighborhood,
I remember. Yeah.
but tens of thousands. The Jews that came from Russia, 20, 30, more than that already now, 30, 40 years ago, the people who were being persecuted that were leaving Russia in order to come and live here. So, maybe for this span of time, like these 5-10 years that we're in, and things are quiet, etc. But those of us who know world history and know what happens over the course of world history, and how anti-Semitism is never gone, it comes and goes in different times. So I absolutely still think, yes, there is a need for this place, and the fact that we're here and that we have an army that's here to defend us, and that they'll defend and bring in people, like they saved the Jews from Ethiopia, they saved the Jews from Yemen from the civil war there. That's what it's for. We are a people who has never had anybody on the planet that would stand up for us and guarantee our safety and guarantee that they're going to stand for us and help us, etc. And that came to its absolute worst conclusion in the Holocaust, when many countries, right, there was the man, my memory is just slipping in this conversation. There was a conference in France. What was it called? Like a whole conference of an international community that came together, and they wanted to try to, what's on one of the rivers, one of the names of the rivers in France. It's named after that conference.
Seine, Loire.
Is that? I'll have to find. I'll send you a link. We'll put it into the description. But a whole conference of countries that like saw what was happening in Germany and Poland, and said like, oh wow, yeah, it's really, really terrible. But at the end of the day, nobody would take in the Jews. And the Nazis even used this in their propaganda. They put up signs, Jews for sale, but no takers. So
it's the same criticism that Palestinians get now. Like, nobody wants these people. They're so awful. They cause trouble. No, that's why other Arab countries don't accept them. It's ironic, but it's similar.
No, I understand that we can rehash the whole history, their opportunities to have their own place, which they've turned down every time.
We already kind of did that, but let's focus on apartheid.
Yeah.
So does this? Let's say I more or less agree that there is no apartheid in Israel. Maybe I lack some information. Maybe somebody else, like I don't know, people we've discussed, like Max Blumenthal, they would counter with something, or Abby Martin. Maybe they can point to somehow money not going to schools where there are more Arab kids. I don't know it on that level. I don't know.
Okay, but you would have to show that it's money not going to them, and also not going to other groups. Meaning, if the ultra-Orthodox are treated the same way as the Arabs, so then that's still not apartheid, right? That's still that's a mean government, let's say, that has messed up priorities, etc. But that's not apartheid. That's not anti-Palestinian apartheid. And that's exactly.
I will be criticized for this also by some of my friends. And I will accept that there is no apartheid within the borders of Israel. Within the state of Israel, the term apartheid does not apply. I get that. I'm like, right now I accept that. Does it apply between Israelis and Palestinians? Palestinians, I mean outside, non-Israelis. Does it apply there? Is it a security fence, or is it an apartheid border? Is the treatment of Palestinians in the West Bank, keeping them separate, as the word it means, separateness in my Dutch mind, let's say, does it apply there?
So I think the whole legal status, the whole legal status of the West Bank is very fuzzy. You know what I'm saying? It's not very clear. There are certain areas in the West Bank. There's like areas A, B, and C. There are certain areas that are officially under the PA control, meaning it's
this was agreed upon after the Oslo Accords, right?
That's correct. That was what's supposed to. That was what was supposed to be there. They are the ones who are supposed to be policing there. They're the ones who are supposed to be holding elections there for their. You know what I mean?
Have there ever been elections in the West Bank?
Not since Abbas. No. No. I don't. That's nothing to do with Israel.
And Abbas was then democratically elected, and then no more elections.
Correct.
Yeah. So
correct. The same thing with
Hamas was elected in Gaza, and
exactly. But that has nothing to do with us, right?
You didn't tell them have no more elections. Okay.
Yeah, I'm saying that's just their. Again, if I tell you how corrupt the PA is and their level of, just unbelievable nepotism and corruption.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of these leaders, and many Palestinians are also no fans of these leaders, I think.
So okay, but yeah, as for the status of the Palestinians that are living in the West Bank, so no, they do not have the same rights as Israelis. But
is that apartheid?
I don't consider that apartheid.
Why not?
They're not our citizens. They're not citizens of Israel, right? In other words, apartheid is when you've got.
Okay, I want to get this. So somebody uses the term apartheid for the situation outside of the borders of Israel. Does that imply that person kind of thinks that those Palestinians are also actually Israelis and they're being banned from being Israeli, or why would somebody label this apartheid? Because they are separate, right? Apartheid was in one and the same country, right?
Correct.
Originally, South Africa, their apartheid was within the borders of South Africa.
Correct.
You take issue with this concept, with this term being applied to Israel because it's not happening within Israel.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, not only that, but I'm saying, but the way that it's described, which is just not true. Like there are Jew-only roads, and roads that like only for the Jews. That's not true. There are roads.
I was there. They're only for Israelis. So an Arab Israeli could use those roads.
Precisely, but that's a very big difference.
But now we're going back to there's no apartheid in Israel, and I agree.
Well, okay, but I understand, but I'm just pointing out that the terminology that people use is intentionally inflammatory and intentionally misleading. That it's. But yes, it's a very big problem. I'm agreeing with you.
Both sides. You know that I'm writing a book inspired by you actually, and I agree that a lot of labels that are being thrown around seem to have the purpose to anger the other side, to make it as bad as possible, to actually make it painful, like apartheid, bam, but
I don't think it's to anger us. I think it's to rally the world. That's I think
that's a part of it. But it angers many Israelis, right?
Of course,
they don't like to hear the term apartheid. Just like they don't like freedom fighters. That's if you call Hamas freedom fighters, I suppose your hair stands on end.
Correct. I recognize one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. That's obvious. That's obvious.
But what I really want to get to is that why is there any reason why people would call what's happening between Israelis and Palestinians, Arabs outside of Israel, as something like apartheid?
As something like apartheid?
Yeah, like you're keeping them out of Israel, right? They can't jump in their car and drive to Haifa from let's say Ramallah.
I mean, they can go through a checkpoint and do so. They have to go through checkpoints,
but they need those checkpoints.
Correct, right? Following the two intifadas, that's what happened, right? The same thing with the wall. The wall wasn't set up to keep us away from them. The wall was set up to keep the bombers away from us. You know what I mean?
But I'm really trying to understand it. So what kind of feelings or what goes through your mind when somebody says apartheid wall? Like where do you think, okay, come on, don't call it that way?
What would you do to stop people coming into your country with bombs? What would you do?
I'm a super naive guy. I used to work for the most leftist newspaper you can find probably in Belgium. So my naive thinking is treat them better and then they won't become terrorists.
but they were terrorists before we were treating them any which way. They were terrorists before we were a country. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
You see, you know me now. By now, you know me. I'm trying to understand.
no, I understand, and
I
I
have
told
many
you this
blind
before. I
spots
don't
and
know.
silly ideas. I recognize that.
I don't know what the solution is in the West Bank. I don't have a solution for you, other than if there would be a real broker for peace on the Palestinian side, somebody who was actually pragmatic and actually believed in the cause instead of just paying lip service to it and behind the scenes encouraging violence and promoting violence and glorifying violence. I don't know. I honestly don't know. The Palestinians that are there, that are in the West Bank, they are not citizens of any country. They're not, so they don't have the rights of any country. It's a very, very, very sad situation. If they would not have chosen violence as their course of action, they would have a lot more freedom today than they do. Like we've discussed many times,
but many people
they could go wherever they wanted.
Yeah, but many people disagree with this, right? You
with
know
what?
that.
With which part? Which part?
That they chose violence. I think many people see it as Israel's actions forced them to go the violent way. You know, if we take somebody like Norman Finkelstein, I think you know him.
When Bill Clinton brokered a deal with Arafat and gave them 97% of the entire Gaza, 97% of the West Bank, with 3% swaps with Israel proper, so they would have 100% of their land, and they started the Intifada. That was the Arafat walked away and chose violence. That's what he did. They would have had a state now for almost 20 years. I don't like what's the other side to that? What's the other way of looking at that?
This is weird because I have Palestinians writing me that they don't like Arafat because he agreed to it. So they see him as a traitor because he accepted this plan.
Well, because again, are those Palestinians that believe that Israel should exist on the borders that we started with, or no?
And unfortunately, no. Like,
okay, so those are not people that we're going to be dealing with, right, William? People who don't believe that we should.
I don't want to dismantle Israel. You know that.
But I know you don't. But when you're talking about a person who does, so then no, there's never going to be peace with those people, and they're going to remain in limbo, and they're going to remain citizens of no place, and they're going to die like that. What's going to happen? What's going to change?
What is your advice to Palestinians?
Accept Israel, accept that we're not going away, accept that we are a country that exists, accept that we are here, whether you like it or not, and build your own damn state. Just forget about us and build your own state, build your own place with normal, peaceful, like every other country in the world does. That's the only answer. But you're quoting to me from people who don't want to accept that we should exist at all. So we're not going to make peace with those people.
My point was what you tell me that Arafat rejected it, but Palestinians themselves don't see it that way. They claim that he accepted it. So now I'm confused. Did he accept it?
How come they don't have a state? So how come they don't have a state? Of course he rejected it. Of course
no. The idea is he accepted it and people protested and that undid the deal.
No. What Arafat did that they consider him a traitor is that he agreed to take out from the PLO charter. He agreed to remove from the PLO charter two things. He agreed to remove out a violent resistance, and he agreed to take out that they will not recognize Israel as an entity, just like Egypt and Jordan, right? Egypt and Jordan, we don't fight with them, right? We've been peaceful with Egypt and Jordan. We're not great friends, right? We're not, but we're not at a war with either of them because they accept that we have a right to exist. So when Arafat, which I don't even believe him, I think he was a completely, and I think the proof is in the pudding, as they say, because that's what ended up happening. I think he was just doing this in order to scam the world in order to just make it look like he was looking for peace. But throughout in his Arabic talks and everything, he was still promoting violence throughout. But again, people who are going to call him a traitor because he agreed to the fact that Israel can exist, so that is a group of people I don't feel sorry for. I don't feel sorry for them. They're putting themselves into the position that they are in. They are refusing to accept history. They're refusing to accept that they lost war after war after war after war to try to undo something. So what are we supposed to do for them? What are we supposed to do? There's a famous comic, cartoon, where it shows like an Arab, maybe Arafat or whatever, some regular Arabic person and an Israeli diplomat with the American in the middle, and he's the Arabic says, I demand that all of them leave, or I demand that all of them die. And he looks to the American person, well, can you at least meet him halfway? Can you at least compromise? But it's a joke, but that's what we're talking about. If you're telling me that there are people who don't believe that we have a right from the river to the sea, that's what it means. That doesn't mean anything else.
And that's also debatable.
No, it's not debatable. That's such
we can
BS.
talk about that next time.
No, William, please.
I've seen different explanations of that.
Not since the last year from now, not since October 7th. The river to the sea has never meant anything different. That is total and complete baloney. And if you ask anybody in Hamas, or you ask your Palestinian friend who doesn't think we have a right to exist, they'll tell you exactly what it means. That's total and complete baloney.
But they're not all like that. I mentioned a couple, but they're not all like that.
Okay, I'm saying
there are many shades to.
I agree. Many. And I would love to make peace with those people who are interested in it, but those people don't say from the river to the sea. They don't. Everybody knows what the river to the sea means. Everybody. That's such a stupid rebranding, gaslighting. It's like ridiculous to say that. It means very, very clearly what it says.
Okay, but back to apartheid. Like we agreed, yes. we want to stay with one topic. So if I understand you correctly, no apartheid in Israel. And I get you there. Like apartheid is goes much further than what you're describing. Like I accept that. And according to you, no apartheid can exist between Israel and the Palestinians because apartheid has to happen in the same country. And basically, Israel is not responsible for what the Palestinians do.
Well, I think
there cannot be apartheid between the two.
I think, I don't know the laws of all of these ideas of what's called occupation or not or whatever. I don't know all the legal ramifications of that. Like I said, it was never their place. It was Jordan's before it was Israel. Jordan was occupying it, and then Israel took it over. It was never the Palestinians, ever. It never, ever was. So I don't know.
So wait. So this isn't, just so maybe also our viewers can get a better feel for this. Is this like an area that is has no real clear legal status? It's not a country, right? Because many people are confused about this. I noticed this with students as well. They think that Palestine is somehow a normal regular country, but it isn't, right?
No, it is not. It never was. It's a region, and like we discussed extensively in the past, it's a region that changed hands over historical time periods. Most recently, it was the British until 1948, and then it was Jordan after they tried to take over the entire area, but they were stopped halfway through. And then it was in 1967 when Israel for the first time conquered that area. And again, the real apartheid was the Jews being kicked out of all of those areas, in 1948, and then finally they were allowed to come back in 1967. But yes, it's a very, very big question mark. I don't know if there's any other place on the planet that has this same type of a question. Usually an occupation means that, like, when Russia comes into areas of Ukraine and beats out all the Ukrainian military and civil structures there, and now it's occupied. Or when West Germany was occupied by the Allies, So all the German infrastructure was now under the control of the Allies, and then they let go of their occupation and left. But that's not the case over here. It's not. It was never a country. It was never a place. It was, again, Jordanians could have made a state then. They had many, many years, decades, that they could have set up a state if they actually cared about the Palestinians. They didn't. And then Israel pushed them out, and now it's under Israeli control. I don't know what the legal...
Listening to you, I can maybe kind of compare it to after the Confederacy was defeated during the American Civil War, the Union, let's say, occupied the seceded states, and there was a process to let them back into the Union, and they had to prove certain things, and in the end, they all re-entered the Union, right? And there was also violence. We can agree on that, I think.
Yeah.
They showed enough signs that they wouldn't resist the government, at least. Maybe the ex-slaves, of course, but not the government, and they were readmitted in the Union, right?
Yeah.
But and this is different because it's hard for me to summarize this, but you would like to see that these Palestinian territories evolve into normal states and the peaceful way.
Of course.
And then Israel will not bother with them anymore. No more tough.
Just like we did in Sinai, we gave back the whole Sinai desert. We gave to Egypt, and just like we did to Gaza in 2005, we left. Yeah, you know what I mean? That it's and if from the beginning, if from the very beginning the Palestinians that were there would have had the same attitude as the Palestinians in the Israeli borders proper, then they would have just been Israeli citizens. And then it would be a big question, well, what's going to end up happening if they end up becoming a demographic majority? And those would be big issues we would have to deal with. But they didn't accept it. You know what I'm saying? They did not accept being citizens of Israel. They don't recognize, again, not all of them, right? But the masses of them that were there, the ones that stayed in Israel recognize Israel, and now they live here and they prosper, and they're more free in Israel than they would be in any of the Arabic countries in the Middle East. But this group of people, or at least their leadership, has, this is the attitude that they maintain. So I don't know. I really don't know what's going to be. I like I've said from the very, very beginning, I just don't know. I don't know, and it's an awful, it's an awful situation. But until there's a real attitude shift, like what you're describing that happened in the South, right? Until there is like really going to be people who are pragmatic and say, okay, we have to come to terms with the fact that Israel's not going to disappear. It's not going to be going away. It is a Jewish state that exists at our neighbors, and let's try to finally live like regular people and stop the resistance and stop the trying to do something that's never going to happen and just make ourselves our own country. That's the only solution that I could see. And then, the settlements of this, we'll deal with that. We'll deal with how to deal with the land and everything. We've done that before. Again, we did it in the Sinai.
I know.
And there were settlements in the Sinai also. There were Jewish people who moved into the Sinai and they didn't want to leave. And just like what happened in Gaza, the Israeli army, my aunt and uncle, they're now divorced, but my father's sister, she was living in one of these settlements in the Sinai, and they literally were picked up by army trucks, and people were like jumping off the trucks and running back to try to say, no, we're not going to leave. We're not going to leave. But they did. And Egypt and Israel have been at peace now for many, many years. And, it's.
So if the Palestinians sufficiently show that they want peace, you can imagine that some settlements in the West Bank would be, demolished and they would pack up and leave.
Somehow something like that would have to happen. Something like that. It would have to happen. Some of them are like not settlements; they're big cities. They're full cities with everything there. I don't know how that would be. Like what Bill Clinton tried to do, it was going to be a certain amount of that area was too established to trade back, so they would get land in Israel that was going to be theirs, etc. So I could envision things like that happening. And yes, I'm sure there are people like that woman, Daniela Weiss. I consider her a wicked person. I don't, and like I told you, she's like the extreme of the extreme fringe of that whole mindset. So they would love to do everything that they can to make what I'm describing an impossibility. There definitely are people like that.
You're referring to an interview with this wise person
In the New Yorker magazine,
in the New
right? This
Yorker,
woman
and
who's
she
like,
goes very far, and she basically, yeah, she sounds awful, and she
yes,
wants to
yes,
push
I'm
out
saying,
all the Palestinians and have all the land.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
she's like I said, she's almost 80 years old, and she's
Yeah.
dedicated her entire life. Her parents were terrorists, or like, literally, her parents were free, during the Palestine Mandate period. So that she is not representative. There are Israelis who think like her. Of course, there are, but that's not certainly not the mainstream. That's even Netanyahu's government, the right-wing government, is not on board with her approach at all. And I think she was only chosen to be interviewed in order to get these, very inflammatory rhetorical lines out of her, which is terrible. That whatever. Which I agree. We
I
lose.
was very surprised to read these things. Very like, how is this possible?
Yeah,
That she speaks so openly about these things in such terms. It's very
yes,
shocking.
very,
But
very
back to
distressing.
apartheid. Let's reach some conclusion. So I accept that. Okay, in Israel, I can't point to anything that right now I can't point to anything that says, okay, there's apartheid in Israel. So what with this label when it comes to Israel and the Palestinians outside of Israel?
So again,
We're saying
it's
no
not.
possible.
We don't. That's not called apartheid. I don't know what it is.
So it's a total misnomer. You
It's a
should call
total
it.
misnomer. Again, apartheid means that there's in a country or
is it an occupation in your view?
it's an occupation, but again, not even your classic occupation, because it's an occupation of a no man's land. It's an occupation of a place of not that was never not occupied.
And even under this occupation, there seems to be quite a lot of autonomy in the West Bank, you say?
In some areas, yes. In some areas that are under the PA, there are. It's like areas A, B, and C that are. So as far as I understand, I've never made a real study of this. I don't know the grand details, but the areas that are. I mean, Israelis are not allowed to go to those areas. We're literally not in.
Can I take Nablus as an example? Nablus?
I think like Ramallah and Nablus and Jenin.
Bethlehem? No, maybe not. Bethlehem? Bethlehem.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, let's say Nablus. If I go to a school or a university in Nablus, Israel has no say in what's being taught there, I suppose.
I would assume so. Again, I don't know for sure, but I would assume so.
I like that you say that you don't know for sure. I mean, it shows your integrity.
Yeah, I don't know what I don't know. I would look that up. That's interesting to know exactly what certainly security control they do. In other words, they control who comes and goes, that's for sure, and they control militarily they control the area, but I don't know what's happening inside in the inner workings of that city on day-to-day life, people walking around. I don't know if there's Israeli soldiers everywhere there like there are in the rest of Israel. I don't know.
And then what angers a lot of people, me included, are all these images that we see coming out of the West Bank of people being shot. Somebody sent me images of a taxi driver that was shot. I mean, it's very shocking. It makes people angry. It also provides some rationale for why Hamas did this. Like, look at what people are doing in the West Bank.
In what context are people being shot? Like I sent you something yesterday also that you could read an entire thread and not know that the 16-year-old girl they're talking about stabbed a woman in front of her children with a 10-inch knife.
Yesterday I saw a Palestinian girl walking, and the caption was that she's deaf and she gets shot in the face with a stun grenade. It's awful, right?
Yeah, that would be awful. I don't know what the
I also don't know the exact context, but I am 99% sure that this is what happened there. It angers people, of course, and they blame Israel. Of course, they blame
the only
Israel.
thing I can tell you that I do know for certain, and it's like what we've mentioned this before, the people in the Israeli army that are out there and policing these places and doing these are not bloodthirsty baby killers looking for every chance they can to kill and maim and wound. That's just not true. It's just not true. And like we spoke about, there was one time that there was a really, really bad person who shot a kid in the back with a rubber bullet,
Yeah,
and
you told
she
me he
was
got
arrested
punished.
and went to jail, and she was prosecuted for that, because that's not what we do. I'm telling you that what you are presented with, because I see it on Twitter, I see what's happening. What you are presented with as like, you know, completely innocent people and all of these things,
Yeah,
there's a
constantly,
context.
and I don't even look for these things, you know. It just
I understand. So send them to me, and let's try to find the context each time.
yeah. I don't want
Today
to
there are
bother
three
you every
Palestinians
time.
that were
I don't
killed.
want.
Just outside Jerusalem today, there are 3 Palestinians that were killed. I'm sure in the Arab press it just says that they were, you know, killed, you know, indiscriminately. They shot at the checkpoint. They were killed in a firefight, and in the car they killed. They didn't kill, thank God. They shot 4 Israelis. And it's a road that my partner travels whenever there's traffic on the main highway. Then he goes through that checkpoint, and he, like, you know what I mean, it's not uncommon that he's there. And 4 people there were shot today. Thank God they weren't killed. And the 3 terrorists were killed. And then they opened up their car, and there's machine guns, there's hatchets, there's all sorts of stuff that's in there, all sorts of paraphernalia that they're on their way to commit an attack. So again, I don't know about the deaf girl with the stun grenade. I don't know. I would have to see that and understand the context, but it is not the way you're describing. I said to my wife also, like what you said about just indiscriminately somebody drove by and just like target practice shot somebody in the back. That does not happen. It does not happen. It doesn't happen. Are there people caught in crossfires? Yes. Are there people that are, you know, mistakes made? Yes. But there is not indiscriminate, wanton murder just for the sake of terrorizing the population and murder. There is not. That just does not happen. It doesn't happen. It's just not it's just not. People like that are arrested if something like that would happen. It doesn't happen over here. Even there was a whole big case. There was a person who committed a terrorist act, and you know, a shooting, and he was shot and incapacitated on the ground. This is a number of years ago already. And a soldier came over to him and basically executed him on the ground. And he went to jail. It was a huge thing, and many people supported him and said, no, he shouldn't go to jail. You know, he was suspicious. Maybe he had an explosive vest and everything, but it was a huge, huge thing in the country, and the person was prosecuted and he went to jail, and it just doesn't happen that way. It just doesn't. It makes it. I know what these people think because I read it on Twitter, and their picture of Israel and their picture of who and what is happening here is a completely distorted picture that they literally think we're the Nazis, and worse than the Nazis is like, you know, it's absurd. It's absurd.
Well, when we met online, I called you a genocidal maniac. No?
I know you did. I know
I never apologized for that. I wish to apologize for that. I'm sorry for calling you that way, but
I understand that
maybe,
people see it that way, but it's just not that way. It's just not.
Well, maybe you understand a little bit where that was coming from, you know?
I do, because people who are exposed only to one-sided propaganda and with no context.
Not everything is propaganda, I think.
Okay, well, again, that thing that I said.
Let's say content that's more slanted to the
that thing that I
perspective.
sent you, about that girl on Twitter, that 16-year-old girl, where there's a whole long thread that if you would just read that, you would think that she's just this regular cute little teenager that for no reason is being, you know, because of her you know, some online post or something that she made, she's going to jail for 14 years. That's propaganda. When you leave out the fact that she tried to kill a woman by stabbing her in the back, that's propaganda. That's not like you know, but
I think on WhatsApp we briefly got into that. Like, I see cliques forming where and sometimes it's called an echo chamber, where you have to be either 100% pro-Palestinian on every single thing, every single time, or you have to be 100% pro-Israeli. And if you're not, you immediately get attacked by.
So I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true about the pro-Israel. I don't think that's true. I think that there are many people on the Israeli side that we talk about and see that are very measured, and they don't automatically support. And I don't see that as being true. I don't know about your side, because I'm not a part of that world. That, you know,
I get that.
But I don't see that in terms of the way that our interactions go. Anything that I've ever written on Twitter that was balanced or anything, or telling people not to post fake things, or I never get hate for that. I just, whatever, it is what it is. But I don't know.
Mhm.
I hear.
Yeah. But so our topic for today, apartheid, from a legal standpoint of view, no apartheid in the state of Israel. That's not your daily experience. You see Arabs everywhere. They have jobs. You can talk to them. You interact with them. You can be friends with them. They can own companies. They can become very
Every
wealthy.
aspect of life, every single aspect in every sector of life, there are Palestinian Arabs. Yes.
Okay,
In the West Bank, it's a very, very complicated situation.
very
But
different situation.
I don't call that apartheid.
Mhm.
I don't think that is an apt term or a description of
Mhm.
what we're talking about. I just
Well,
don't.
if we did anything today, I think the best thing that came out of this is that at least we know that inside Israel there's no apartheid. How we qualify what happens outside is maybe
Yes, and people can
we
put
can
into the
talk more
comments.
about that later.
And any of your friends who say I'm a liar, please post in the comments. Whatever you want to post.
You see me
Please, yeah,
I always defend you,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I every day I get contacted by friends who are very skeptical about what I'm doing. So
Okay, keep it up.
um,
Keep it up.
yeah, it's challenging, but it's also very interesting, and I find this very valuable, very valuable.
Likewise, I
Mhm.
really do. I appreciate it, William. I appreciate
And
it.
I know you are a very busy man, so I'm gonna let you go here because I think we sort of reached a conclusion on
We
this
went
one
overtime
topic.
for our 15
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah, I know, because we're both so passionate about this. I get it.
Yes,
So
yes.
if you agree, we can next time we can zoom in
Yeah,
on
well,
one other aspect of
one
this.
topic.
It
God
would
willing,
be
we'll move
my
on.
pleasure.
All the best, William. Good to see
Moshe,
you.
take care. Take care.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.